This conference will now be recorded.
So today let us enter into the next part of our course, that is Advanced Java, even we call Java EE. Java EE stands for Java Enterprise Edition. Java EE stands for what? Java Enterprise Edition. The main use of going with Java EE is used to develop web applications and enterprise applications. It is used for what? To develop web applications and enterprise applications. Now, in this Java EE, it goes with the components of Java EE. So it goes with the two components. They are web components and enterprise components. Web components and enterprise components. These web components are used to develop web applications. What is the use of web components? Used to develop web applications. And the components are Servlets, JSP. JSP stands for Java Server Pages. Coming to enterprise components, used to develop enterprise applications. So when you say enterprise applications, these are distributed, secure, more secure. Like all the banking applications comes under enterprise applications. Distributed means application to application interaction. One application can interact with other application. Like example, when you take Amazon, from Amazon, when you want to do the payment process, we connect to the respective payment process, respective payment. So applications are communicating, that we call distributed. Okay, so more about we'll discuss distributed again. Now, and the component is EJB. EJB stands for Enterprise Java Beans. And this EJB is outdated now. People are not at all using EJB. What we are using our EJB means Spring Framework. What we are using now? Spring Framework. So in our course, we won't do this EJB, we'll go with Spring. Now, whenever we go with Java EE applications, Java EE applications are accessed by multiple clients. And if you want to make the application to be used by multiple clients, we need to deploy, means we need to copy the application onto the server so that the application can be accessed by multiple clients. So you can say Java EE applications are accessed by multiple clients. And to make the Java EE application to be used by multiple clients, we need to deploy, means we need to copy the application onto the server. So to develop Java EE applications, what we require? Server. So if I want to work with the servlets JSP and EJP, we require a server. Related to Java, we are having two types of servers. Related to Java, we are having two types of servers. They are web servers and application servers. Web servers and application servers. Coming to web servers, these are used to develop web applications only. These are used to develop web applications only, means it can understand servlets and JSP only. And the examples of web servers are like, the widely used server is Apache Tomcat. So we use more of this Tomcat server in our applications, Apache Tomcat. Then we are having Adobe JRun, Jetty like this. Then coming to application servers, used to develop web applications and enterprise applications. Used to develop what? Web applications and enterprise applications. That means it can understand servlets, JSP and HAP. So which indicates these web servers are subset of application servers. And the examples of application servers are like Oracle, WebLogic, Oracle, Glassfish, IBM, WebSphere, Red Hat, JBoss, like this. These are some of the application servers. In our codes, we'll be making use of this Tomcat server. So if you know how to configure one server in Eclipse workspace, the same way we are going to work with other servers. So I'll be elaborating this more about how to configure this server and how to go with other servers in the tomorrow's class. So tomorrow we'll be seeing how to download Tomcat server and how to configure it in Eclipse IDE. So in our course completely we'll be using Tomcat server, right? So this is the introduction. Any questions? No. Moving to the next one, servlets. Let us start off with servlets. The use of going with HTML is to develop static web pages. HTML is for what purpose? To develop the static web pages. If you want to make it dynamic, we make use of JavaScript. And JavaScript is for developing client-side dynamic web pages. Means the application will be running on the client machine, means browser end. Right? But it is only for web pages. But servlets for web applications. When you say application, we should be able to connect to databases, provide security, all those features should be there, so that multiple people can access our application. Right? So the use of servlets is servlets are used to develop server side. This word is important. Server side dynamic web applications. Server side dynamic web applications. So servlets are what? Servlets are Java programs only. They are also Java programs which are used to develop server side dynamic web applications. We are having other technologies also to develop server side web applications. Technologies used to develop server side dynamic web applications. So related to Java, we go with servlets, JSP and Spring MVC. We make use of Spring MVC. Then other technologies like ASP.NET, .NET related, we can use PHP, we can go with Django. Django, here we using Python. It is using Python here, right? Now, in our course, we will be discussing servlets, JSP and even Spring MVC. These are related to Java technology. Now, coming to servlets, let us start off with servlets architecture. Sorry, hierarchy. Servlets hierarchy. Servlets hierarchy. Now, so coming to the servlets hierarchy, The topmost interface under servlet hierarchy is servlet interface. Servlet interface. And when we say interface, interface contains what type of methods? By default, the methods present in interface are
abstract.
very good. Servlet interface methods. By default, methods present in interface are abstract methods. The methods are like init, service, destroy, then get servlet info, get servlet config, get servlet context. Right? Now, all these methods are abstract methods. Now, under servlet interface, it goes with a subclass, that is generic servlet class. Generic servlet class. And this generic servlet class implements servlet interface. And the diagrammatic symbol of implements is dotted triangle arrowhead. And the diagrammatic symbol of implements is what? Dotted triangle arrowhead. Now, so when a class implements an interface, what we need to do? We need to override the methods of interface, right? So what we have learned in object oriented. So in this generic servlet class, all methods of servlet interface are overridden. So whenever a class implements an interface, we need to override the methods of interface. So here all methods of servlet interface are overridden except service method. Except which method? Service method. Meaning this service method is still abstract here. This service method is still abstract. Service method is abstract. Now, when a class implements an interface, and if you are not overriding all the methods, then what keyword we have to use before the class? What keyword we have to use before class? Right, that is abstract, right? What keyword we have to use? Abstract. Object oriented is very, very important. So what keyword we have to use before the class? Abstract. So remember the rule. Whenever a class implements an interface, or whenever a class extends abstract class, if you are not overriding all the methods, we need to make your class once again as what here? Abstract. Clear this point? Under generic servlet, it goes with a subclass, one more subclass, that is HTTP servlet class. This HTTP servlet class extends generic servlet. HTTP servlet class extends generic servlet. And the diagrammatic symbol of extends is what? Triangle arrowhead. Okay, and when this HTTP servlet class extends generic servlet, so which method is still abstract in generic servlet? Service method, right? Service method is still abstract, so we need to override that service method here. So service method is overridden here. These are all internal code only I am explaining. Service method is overridden. Even though there are no abstract methods, understand carefully, even though there are no abstract methods in HTTP servlet class, they made this class as abstract. They made this class as what? Abstract. The reason is, can we create objects for abstract classes? No. We cannot create objects for abstract classes. So Java people want to form a rule that whenever a programmer want to create a servlet, they cannot use generic servlet class or HTTP servlet class directly, because we cannot create objects of these classes as they are abstract. So whenever a programmer want to create a servlet, they have to create their own class. We have to create a class which extends either generic servlet or which extends HTTP servlet. So by extending this generic servlet or HTTP servlet only, we can create a servlet. So in order to form that rule only, they made these classes as what here? Abstract. And when we go with HTTP servlet, we generally override two methods. They are doGet and doPost. So more about what is this doGet, what is this doPost, I'll be discussing in tomorrow's class. Clear this diagram, all of you? Any questions? No. Coming to the next one. Servlet architecture. A very simple diagram. Servlet architecture. Today all theoretical words only. Tomorrow only we go with the practical part, the application development. Servlet architecture. Now, here, so whenever we want to go with servlets, we require a server. What we require? Server. In server, we are going to deploy. Servlets. In server, we are going to deploy the servlets. Now, so servlets are mainly for web applications. So whenever you want to access web application, we require a client. Then who is the client for web applications? Browser. So who is the client for web applications? Browser. So we open browser and we type the URL, right? We type the URL like www.gmail.com like that. So who is the client for web applications? Browser. Now, from browser, the data whatever we are sending to the server or servlet, we call it as a request. Like example, if you open Gmail and when we type www.gmail.com, means we are making a request to Gmail server. Then once you make a request to Gmail server, what it is going to display back on browser? The login page, right? It's going to display what? Login page. That we call it as response. So the data which is coming from server back to browser, we call it as response. Once it displays the login page, we type that username and password. When you click on login, again that username and password will go to server in the form of request data. In response, what we get? Inbox page. So the data which is going from browser to server is called as request. The data which is coming from server back to browser is called as response. So two important words here. Clear these two terms? No. Now let us understand servlet life cycle. Servlet life cycle. So when you say life cycle, it comes with some set of methods. You can say life cycle is a collection of methods which are executed in an order automatically. Automatically means we need not invoke these methods. They are executed automatically in an order by the servlet container. When you say container means your server only. Okay. And the lifecycle methods are init, service, and destroy. Init, service, and destroy. So these three methods. These three methods of servlet interface are considered as lifecycle methods. Lifecycle methods here. Okay. Now let us understand more on these methods. So first init. So when init method is executed is like whenever you make a request to a servlet, it enters into init method. So this is called only once when servlet is loaded. So whenever the servlet gets loaded, it enters into init method automatically. Then generally we establish database connections. So what type of code we write in this init method? We do database connections. Then service method called for every request. So whenever you make a request, it enters into service method. So the logic behind your request, the code behind your request, we should write in service method. Like example, if you take a banking application like accessbank.com. So once we type www.accessbank.com, you are making a request to Access Bank server. Then in response, it displays login page. Once we type username and password, when you click on login, it's a request. When you click on mini statement, it's a request. When you click on transfer funds, it's a request. When you click on pay bills, it's a request. So whatever the click operation you are doing, we call them as request. So the logic behind your request, we write in service method. Now, if I do database connection in service method, for every request, it is going to do database connection, which is not good. That's the reason we do database connection in init method, so that this one connection, we can use it for multiple requests. Okay. Destroy called only once when servlet is destroyed, means when we close the browser window. And generally we close database connections. We do the closing operations here. So complete example we'll see on this life cycle, how to do database connections, everything. We go with one good application in third class of servlet. Today is first class, no? Tomorrow we go with second, and Monday we go with third class. In third class, we'll discuss the complete life cycle practically. Right? Any questions, anyone? No. Moving to the next one, creating a servlet. So whenever we want to create a servlet, we can go with two ways. By creating a class which extends generic servlet class, or by creating a class which extends HTTP servlet class. So either you can go with generic servlet or HTTP servlet. Let us see initially using generic servlet class. So just we have to create a class. The class must be public as we access from outside. Public class hello servlet extends generic servlet. So when a class extends generic servlet, understand? Whenever a class extends generic servlet, see the diagram. Whenever any class extends generic servlet, which method we need to override? Service, right? Because service is still abstract. So if any class extends generic servlet, we have to override service method. So in this hello servlet, we need to override which method? Service. And service method takes two arguments: servlet request. servlet response, and this method throws servlet exception and IO exception. And here in this method, we handle the request. Now, I said, no, two important terms, request and response. Using HTTP servlet class. Using HTTP servlet class, just we have to create a class, hello servlet, extends HTTP servlet. So when you extend HTTP servlet, do we need to override any methods compulsory? No, because HTTP does not contain any abstract methods. But as a programmer, we need to override two methods, that is public void doGet, which takes HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response as arguments. And this method also same throws servlet exception and IO exception. And in this method, we handle the request. Similar way, we can even override do post. So more about when to think of do post and when to think of do get, we'll discuss more in tomorrow's class. Right? One more small note. Interface HTTP servlet request extends servlet request, and interface HTTP servlet response extends servlet response. Okay. So by seeing this note, we can easily say HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response, what they are? Interfaces. They are what here? Interfaces. Then what about the servlet request and servlet response? What about servlet request and servlet response? So if you remember in object oriented, I have given one note. In between class to class, which keyword we have to use? Extends. In between class to interface, which keyword we have to use? Implements. In between interface to interface, which keyword? Extends. In between interface to class not possible, error. So by seeing this note, the servlet request and servlet response, what they are? Interface or class?
Interface.
Very good. Interface, right? They are what here? Interface, because extends. Interface to interface, what keyword we use? Extends. So these also interfaces here. Okay, right? So this is the introduction part of servlets. So next class tomorrow, we go with what? How to download Tomcat server, how to configure Tomcat server in Eclipse, and we'll be learning how to create a dynamic web project and how to create a servlet. Complete practical we'll discuss in tomorrow's class.